Welcome back to your favorite podcast, Pixel Buzz, where we talk about
nerd culture,
tech news,
and everything in between,
with a little bit of a buzz. I am your host, who is Zane. Go ahead and find me on Instagram, Twitter, my webpage, and YouTube. And
I am Schematis. You can find me at Twitter, Instagram, SoundCloud, and YouTube.
Awesomeness. As you can see, the setup is a little bit different than usual. Due to, of course, COVID-19, we're trying to maintain our distance and stay safe.
I miss you, man.
That doesn't stop everything, right, Cal?
A little bit crazy out there, but yeah, life has to go on.
Yeah, exactly. I hear, well, you told me earlier that you've been actually on a few dates.
You know what? Yeah, right. That's a kind of like a taboo topic to talk about these days, right? Like who wants to go dating in a pandemic? But I mean, hey, like life goes on. Like I think I don't want to get caught being a hermit, and I was becoming somewhat of a vampire lately. So I'm like, okay, I gotta go back out there eventually and start meeting people, right? Like, hey, I'm single as a Pringle. Why not?
You were heading out at night and sucking on people's blood, or?
Well, I wasn't doing any of that, but I was kind of like a secluded, right? Like the whole just not going out. I wasn't going anywhere. Like basically just to the grocery store and right back home. Oh, and so occasionally to the office. Right.
Interesting. Okay, well, I mean, things are starting to look better. We're in phase 3 or 4, if I'm not mistaken.
4 now.
Right, in New York. So things are starting to open. Hopefully they stay open because, of course, a new wave is supposed to happen sometime in the winter. But we'll get to that later. But before we get further into the dating conversation, Cal, what are you having tonight to drink?
Good, man. I've got an Eagle Rare over here. Neat. And I highly recommend it. Very smooth. Yeah.
This guy's a brave guy. I got a Japanese whiskey today. It's a Kashi. It's not bad. It's actually imported from Japan. I don't have it neat. I have it on the rocks. I kind of want to be able to function after this. So
I like
not
this
having
guy.
it neat.
Classy.
You already know. But let's get back into that situation about dating. So when did you start dating? Like what kind of motivated you to get back into it?
It's kind of funny, right? I actually started dating in phase 4 not too long ago, like maybe like the last 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
And I was actually like, you actually asked a good question. I got into it because of an article that I read online. It's like, oh, dating hasn't stopped in New York City. It's actually on the rise, and more people are turning to like online dating apps. I'm like, wait, really? In New York? Which is kind of like the thing that no one wanted to do.
Yeah.
And now it's becoming more and more of a thing. It's always like, okay, you know what? Let's bite the bullet. Let's see what happens. And so here I am swiping left and right, and I met a couple of people, and it was really interesting, man. I mean, I don't even know where to start with this, but it wasn't that bad.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Let's start off with maybe let's start off before we get to the actual dating. Let's start off maybe with your fear. Like, how did you feel about actually going out? Were you thinking of precautions that you were gonna take once you got to the restaurant or whatever you wanted to go? Like, what was going through your mind?
And you know that I'm like naturally an anxious person, so everything was running through my mind, right? If we go to a restaurant, are they gonna have clean utensils, right? Are they gonna have clean dishes? We're obviously gonna be dining outside because there's no indoor dining.
Yeah.
All this stuff was like running through my mind, like, and not to mention like the person is the person gonna be a carrier, right? That's always a thing, right? Hey, and the best you can do, you just don't know. Right, you don't know, and I think the best you can do is just use intuition and maybe just through conversation. Are they someone that comes across as someone who practices hygienic, kind of routines? Like, do they look clean? Do they speak in a certain kind of way? Like, do you feel like you can trust them to take care of themselves in a sense, like to socially distance? Do they seem a little bit more out of the box, or like a little crazy, or a little bit on the wild side? Do you think that they wouldn't wear a mask in public? All this stuff kind of comes into you gotta just pick up on a little bit of clues here and there and just be a detective.
Yeah, you're taking little hints from their body,
everything,
their body language,
everything, body language, just
if it comes across
everything.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you, and you had mentioned if it comes across, so that's why I was just adding on to that.
Oh, no worries. Go ahead.
But yeah, so that's interesting. I know you're very keen to keeping away from germs, and that's something that you like to do a lot. I mean, I guess everyone should, but you take extra precautions to not get germs on you. So it's interesting to hear that you were able to actually go out of that shell and then start meeting people. And I'm glad that you're doing that, dude. That's awesome. To be quite honest.
Thank you. I'm the bachelor still.
Hey, ladies, not gents, right? Just ladies.
Just ladies.
Ladies out there, in case you're interested, there you go. Go ahead and find them on Instagram, Twitter, his Facebook, Schematis. Dude is pretty accomplished. Actually, you're going to be in a talk this weekend, right?
Not this weekend. It's coming up next month, actually. I can't wait for it.
Okay.
It's going to be great.
Give us the date.
The the Game Devs of Color Expo. I'm going to be giving a talk on like kind of the game audio side of the world, and I'm really, really happy for this one.
You know what? I'll put the information down in the notes below. Definitely sign up and take a look at this guy's little talk.
Well, thank you.
So you grow up here and you're like, you know what? I'm going to go talk to these women. Let's go from the worst to the best. What's been the worst situation? Of course, no names, don't get too specific.
Okay.
So like set up the scenario. You guys meet in some sort of dating app conversation. How does that go?
Honestly, okay, so I'm pretty good at vetting. I think everyone has to be good at vetting, especially now. But basically just who can you determine is worth meeting up with? Like who is like less risk?
Right.
So the horror stories are not plentiful, right? Because I kind of cut them off at the conversation stage if it doesn't even like if there's no synchronization of something, right? So I don't tend to just meet everyone I talk to, but I do talk to a lot of people.
Okay.
But I'm not leaving my house to actually meet them if something gives me a little bit of a red flag kind of a thing, right?
Got it.
So luckily, I've only been on like 3 or 4 dates. None of them were horrible. Okay. None of them were bad. I can't really say there were certain awkward moments, right? I think that it was actually more interesting because most of the time, you would think about, oh, we're in a pandemic, but when you actually get there and you're on the date, it's totally fine. Like, I don't think anyone really mentioned it. Everyone showed up in their mask, right? And then when we got to the place that we wanted to be at, whether it be a park or a restaurant or like an outdoor bar, whatever the case, we both just take off the mask and resume a regular normal conversation like you wouldn't even have known we're in a stage 4.
Just start conversing. Interesting. There's this joke that is not mine that I heard it. I think it was in a Comedy Central stand-up or something, and the person was saying that nowadays people are more prone to ask if you have COVID than asking if you're like HIV positive or whatever. It's like that would be the first question that people ask. It's not like, hey, do you have any STDs or anything? It's not. It's like, hey, do you have antibodies? Have you had COVID before? But it's interesting to hear that you guys were able to like kind of not talk about that, which is just interesting for me to hear because I would have expected you to be straight out the back, or maybe it should have been a conversation prior to meeting up, I guess, right? Like
honestly, yeah, but it just never came up at any point. And it's funny because the way the comedian says it, he has a good point, right? But never at all has the conversation of, hey, have you have any antibodies come up in conversation? Maybe it's like a joke, but it hasn't been. It's more like, I know a couple of friends who've had it and we've beaten it, and I've been kind of hermiting myself, but it hasn't been like the pinnacle of what the conversation is about. It's like, hey, what are you doing? What do you work? What do you like to do? The same conversation. What do you do for fun? Before this happened, did you travel? Like all these basic normal dating like exchanges, it just didn't change.
Cool.
I'm like, what is different about this? I'm thinking to myself, maybe this is actually going to be better for New York in a sense, because I think that the conversations are more rooted in a core of a person's essence instead of it being this kind of flighty, there's always another person kind of mentality that we used to have.
Correct, yeah.
Right? When we were just kind of New Yorkers, like, there's so many New Yorkers around, you can always just swipe again, or you can just go to a bar, go to a club and find another person. But now it's like the conversations are really more intense. I'm like, you know what? This is not that bad.
A little bit more personal, I guess.
Yeah.
Also, there are
absolutely
less New Yorkers, which lessens your options as well.
That too.
But that's kind of cool to hear. I guess just having the understanding that COVID is happening at the moment just kind of makes it that you ignore that situation so that you don't have to talk about it, which is pretty interesting to hear. I feel like I'm thankful that I'm no longer in the dating game and I have my girlfriend now. Oh, what do you mean that sucks? That's awesome, dude.
No, I'm kidding. The game is over for you. So I'm just kidding. But listen,
though?
You're not missing anything.
Yes,
it's hard out here.
But yeah, I could only imagine, dude. My girlfriend, one of her friends is also was on a dating app for a bit, and it's just not working out. The people that she was chatting with were just not giving her the right vibes, which is interesting now because I think back then, you would mention how this person just isn't giving me good vibes, but I'm just gonna go meet them anyway.
That happens, but not anymore.
Yeah, what I was gonna say, now it sounds like people are actually a bit more interested in finding people that they're interested in.
The soulmate, or even if not a soulmate, at least a high potential potential romantic interest instead of this kind of hookup stuff. Yeah. Very, very much not a thing anymore.
That's good. I mean, it might, but you're also risking it.
Depending on who you are, right? Depending on what you're looking for, but it's just less of it. Yeah. It's just a lot less of it.
That's actually pretty cool. What was the best experience that you had in the situation? And I don't mean by hooking up, but I mean actual connection. What was that like? Or have you not had a connection with someone that deep yet?
Oh, that's a good question, man. You're calling me out. I hope they don't see this. Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's not I think that the best thing I could say is no matter what, each of them, it felt like I knew them all already, which is a good start. Yeah. There was one problem with one instance when the check came. That's another story. That's a different story for a different podcast.
That's a good point. I mean, we can bring it up in another podcast. Maybe expectations of dating. I haven't been there in a while, so you would have to be the one, of course, taking the lead, just like you are now.
I'll try.
But that was one of the interesting things that I had, or one of the questions that I had in my head. What's the situation with paying and stuff now? Do people also, because of the unemployment situation, are
right?
Who?
So I try to I hear where you're coming from, and I try to gauge depending on conversation. So if it's someone who's either going through, hey, I just got laid off, or I'm transitioning jobs, I don't even let them consider, right? I don't even want to give them the option of paying anything. I think it's just I get it, right? But there are certain instances where people are have been working, and at that point I just assume 50-50 is the thing. I don't know you that well, you don't know me that well, we're sharing a space, we're sharing a drink, we're sharing food. I would assume 50-50 is the right way to go. I think the first date is always tricky, right? I mean, I honestly don't mind courting, but I think it's got to be under a certain limit for the first day. I'm not going to go out and spend $150 on someone that I just met, right? I think it's just about balance. I think the expectations are kind of different now, but I don't think they're too bad. I think that they're kind of in the same realm as they used to be. If you're insinuating, hey, come out with me, my idea is I'm going to treat you to what I think you would enjoy. I think that's normal, right? If it's something that's kind of a mutual, hey, why don't we just meet here and just do this thing together and just enjoy each other's company, then I would assume that some kind of split is going to happen at that point.
Interesting.
But I don't know. Yeah, it's very taboo, right? Who pays? Should the guy always pay? I don't think so, but that's just me. I don't know. I don't think the guy should always pay. I think we should probably start it in a certain kind of way, depending on how the conversation develops. But if it seems more mutually, more mutual kind of buddy, I don't think a split is taboo. But if it's something that I know a spot and I think it's one of my favorite spots, it still exists after a pandemic, I want you to come with me, right? That's me taking you. That would be completely on
exactly.
me. I wouldn't.
It all depends on, I guess, how the situation is established. If it's hey, what do you like to eat? Oh, I just found this on Craigslist. I mean, not Craigslist, but YouTube. That's mad shady. Hey, by the way, there's this restaurant.
Super shady. But
it's on Craigslist. Can you come? Yeah, that's a little shady. But I mean, go there. As you can see, I've been out of the game for a while.
Yeah, good for you.
But yeah, so it's kind of Interesting. But so, are you expecting to go on other dates? I don't know if you can put that out there yet.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I have a couple lined up next week, and nothing crazy. I'm very much a slow pace, a slow candle burner. I just like to meet people and see where they're at. The only way you can really get to know someone is through actual communication in person. Text, anyone could look a certain kind of way, and I'm looking forward to it. I think that it's not this scary thing anymore, but you have to vet. This goes for men and women. You have to vet. There's just you got to be like literally the recruiter of your own office.
Is there like
you have to be?
Do you have any tips that you want to maybe give? I mean, it depends on, of course, the person. But like, what do you do to vet? Is there like one thing that you're like big red flags that you're completely opposed to?
If they like Friends more than The Office, get the hell out. That's my number one thing. The Office is way better than Friends, but honestly, like in all seriousness, I think it's the truth of I don't know what one thing could possibly could be the indicator, but you've got to just feel it out. You've got to talk. At this point, I think that's what the biggest thing is. You've got to be willing to talk. If you're not having a healthy exchange back and forth, it's a pretty big sign that you probably shouldn't meet this person at all. Because it's going to be the same thing when you meet in a physical space. Like, you're just not going to be able to communicate. And if you're trying to, I don't know, like, just think of it this way. If you can talk to somebody and it has a nice back and forth of a volley, you can kind of tell that, okay, this person is pretty good in different aspects of life. They seem to be well-rounded. Right. They would kind of not seem a little shady. They would do well in a quarantine. They would do well in a pandemic. You've got to just come to that conclusion. Just take the guess, flip the coin on it. Like, you know what? They're talking to me. They're not being sketchy or dodgy. They're answering my questions. They're kind of engaging me, right? They don't look beat up or homeless in their photos, right? Their bio is clean. You've got to be a detective.
Interesting.
That's just all I can say. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm pretty sure that most people are already taking those steps now. I mean, before and especially now. But good to know. Be your own detective for your own life, I guess. But cool.
Right.
That is not bad. Good luck with your upcoming dates that you're gonna have, of course, already scheduled.
Thank you, sir.
And if you guys have any interesting questions for Calbert, maybe you want to hit him up and give him your phone number, maybe email address. Go ahead and put it. Nah, actually, don't put it down below. But
this guy.
Yeah, because then you'd give it to everyone. We don't want that. We just want it for Calbert. But
thank you, Sam. I appreciate you. I miss you.
Yeah,
man.
dude. It's been a while.
But
so we're gonna cut it short. We're gonna end it here. If you guys have any questions for Calbert, maybe like on some other tips or maybe scenarios that you want to pass by. Anyway,
sounds good.
Any scenarios that you want to bring up to Calbert, put it in the comments down below. And we're gonna end it off on that note.
Sounds good, Captain.
See you next time.